Hi, Katrina. Hi, Josh.
Hey there.
Here's Chardonnay too.
Are we able to stop the recording just for this portion?
Yes. Sorry.
All right, awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. I am going to give folks a couple of more minutes to get into the workshop before we start our presentations. We'll start in about a minute. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We're waiting on more people to join, so we'll start here in a couple seconds. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Katrina Blair, and I'm the Chief of Process and Program Development, and I oversee the Authority Small Business Program. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Before we get started, I just want to point out the chat feature located at the bottom of your screen. If you hover over the bottom of the screen, you'll see the chat feature. Please go ahead and utilize this to type your questions during the presentation, and we'll do our best to answer questions at the end of each presentation. And then we'll circle back at the end of the session to address questions as well. Also, if you can use the chat and let us know if you're a small business, a disabled veteran business enterprise, a disadvantaged business enterprise, or if you're a prime, one of the proposers looking to respond to the bid, please let us know that in the chat. This will give you kind of an opportunity to network in this virtual space. Okay, next slide. So we have a pretty full agenda today, so I will briefly review what we'll cover. I'll provide an overview of what I presented this morning for those of you who did not get to attend the pre-bid. We'll have a presentation on compliance by Sarita Pacheco, our compliance manager. And she will be followed by Chardonnay Valley with Caltrans, who will do a presentation on their federal certificates. Can I ask everyone to put your microphones on mute while we are presenting? Thank you. And then Chardonnay will be followed by Josh Hawk with the California Department of General Services, and he will do a presentation on state certifications. And then we'll close our session with Q&A. But again, feel free to put your questions in the chat as well. Next slide. Okay, so the authority, the High-Speed Rail Authority currently has a 30% small business, overall small business goal, which includes 10% for disadvantaged business enterprise and a 3% goal for disabled veteran business enterprise, which we refer to as DBE and DVBE. As you can see by this map, we have a good number of businesses that are already performing on the contract, about 779 that represent regions from all over the state. And we've kind of highlighted where those businesses are located throughout California. Additionally, we have 28 certified DBEs that actually are from outside of the state of California. In order to meet the goal in accordance with what is defined in the Small Business Program Plan, you'll need to designate, our prime contractors will have to designate a small business officer that's responsible to interact with small businesses and be the point of contact for all things that have to do with small business, and will work closely with my team. It's very important that our prime contractors who are present, kind of network and meet and greet with the small businesses that are present. So if you have a need to add small businesses to your project later on, you might be able to utilize some of the businesses that are present today. Once the contract is executed, my team will hold a kickoff meeting, as I discussed earlier, and you will meet many of the authority staff that will assist you in meeting your goals, including our contract compliance manager, Sarita Pacheco, who you will meet later, and she will do an overview of what's expected. Next slide. The authority is committed to having diverse businesses on this project. So although we're not a certifying agency, we partner with a couple of different agencies to utilize their certification designations that you see listed here on this slide. So anytime you want to bring a small business on board as a prime or even as a subcontractor who is potentially subbing work or subconsultant potentially subbing work, those businesses have to be certified with these departments, and their certification must be current and valid. So you want to make sure that throughout the course of the contract that you have with the authority, all small business certifications are continuously up to date. Chardonnay and Josh will go over these certifications in detail. They're with Caltrans and DGS. So next slide. I touched on this earlier in the forum this morning, exclusivity. So the authority does not prohibit consultants or subcontractors to be exclusive to one offerer, but we do strongly discourage this practice. So that's just an FYI. Slide number 6. Okay, so we do encourage you to connect with us through our vendor registry, Connect HSR. It's free, it's online, it's simple to complete a profile. Businesses who register with Connect HSR will always be notified when there's procurement opportunities and workshops such as this one. Oftentimes we find that businesses are struggling with certain things such as certified payroll, audit requirements, invoicing, things of that nature. So we'll hold workshops or outreach events and have guest appearances from other state partners and organizations that offer support. So there's numerous opportunities to learn about high-speed rail, how we do business, and just how to be successful overall on the project. So we encourage businesses to register to be informed through Connect HSR. So this concludes my portion of the presentation. So thank you for your time. But before I move on, I want to mention that in this virtual setting, we're obviously behind the screen, so it's challenging to make personal connections. However, typically when these types of events are in person, the whole point is to network and discuss qualifications and exchange information. So to that extent, we'll be posting all presentations, documents, the list of attendees from the bidders, the pre-bid this morning, and also from the workshop with their business types, and it'll all be placed on our website. So I would recommend that you use the list of registered attendees and reach out to those that you might have an interest in partnering with, and just be mindful of the certification types. So thank you for your time, and I will now turn it over to Sarita Pacheco for a brief presentation on HSR's compliance.
Thank you, Katrina.
You're
As
welcome.
Katrina mentioned, I am the Small Business Compliance Manager for our program. I work directly under Katrina Blair. As you partner with the authority, one of the first things you'll be required to do is to appoint a small business liaison officer, which we often call an SBO or SBLO. Your small business liaison officer, they typically serve as that liaison between your business and the authority. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. There we go. If you can go back one, please, Annette. There we go. Your small business officer will be expected to do the following: develop and implement and monitor your business's small business performance plan. They will act as the lead for your contractors and subcontractors regarding the small business program's goal and objectives. This includes meeting with all small business subcontractors and ensuring their full understanding of the authority's small business program reporting requirements, as well as their responsibilities and their protections. Your small business officer will also be required, responsible for posting a list of all small businesses that you're subcontracting with on your public website, and they will have oversight on your on-site monitoring. It's important to know that as a prime, you will be required to allow access to the job site or any contract records if requested. In addition, small business officers are required to attend quarterly meetings with the Small Business Compliance Unit, that's my team, regarding overall small business utilization, strategies, and to attend at least 2 Business Advisory Council meetings per year. Next slide, please. Finally, there is a lot of paperwork that comes with the small business aspect of this. And so it will be the responsibility of your small business liaison officer to prepare and submit monthly, due the 15th of each month, is a Form 103 and the prompt payment retainage report. No need to worry. If you're awarded a contract, we will meet with you, as Katrina mentioned, in a kickoff meeting, and we'll go into that document in detail. Also required is the small business narrative report. This narrative discusses your contract small business activities, your meetings, your outreach events, your challenges, your successes, and statistical information. Additionally, due annually, the August 1st of each year will be your annual report. This will be similar to that monthly narrative report, and it reflects what you've accomplished over the last year, the challenges you faced, and the plans that you have in place to achieve your small business goals in the upcoming year. And then, as needed, your small business officers will also prepare and submit requests to add or request to substitute or terminate small business subcontractor forms. Any subcontractor small business agreements or purchase orders, they are required to be submitted to the Small Business Compliance Unit within 14 working days of that contract's execution, regardless of their tier. The contractor and its lower tier subcontractors must also incorporate the authority's prompt payment provisions in full in all executed subcontract agreements. And finally, your small business officers will be required to prepare and submit any change or task orders, verifying any approved changes to the contract value. Next slide, please. We're excited to partner with you and assist in your small business success. And so you can visit us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at https://hsr.ca.gov. I'll hand you back over to Katrina. Katrina?
Thank you, Cyrita. And we'll go ahead and turn it over to Chardonnay from Caltrans to do her presentation. Thank you. Chardonnay?
Thank you so much, Katrina. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Chardonnay Valley. I'm the Certification Branch Manager for the Office of Civil Rights at Caltrans. And today I will be presenting on the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Certification Overview. Next slide, please. Today, I will provide you an overview of the DBE program and how to become certified as a DBE. You will learn the following objectives: the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise or DBE program overview, benefits of certification, eligibility requirements, and we'll go over some frequently asked questions and resources. Next slide, please. So a DBE is a for-profit small business that is at least 51% owned by one or more individuals who are both socially and economically disadvantaged. Also, the management and daily business operations of a DBE business must be controlled by one or more of the socially and economically disadvantaged individuals who own it. Next slide, please. The DBE program is a legislatively mandated program implemented by the states as a condition of receiving federal funds via the Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration, and Federal Aviation Administration, which oversees the program and implements the rules. The United States Department of Transportation distributes a significant amount of federal funds for transportation-related projects to recipients, such as state and local governments, public transit authorities, and airport entities. The operating administrations for federal transit and federal highway follow 49 CFR Part 26 rules, and the Federal Aviation Administration follow the rules under 49 CFR Part 23. And for clarification, CFR is the Code of Federal Regulations. Next slide, please. The DBE program objectives are to ensure non-discrimination in the award and administration of federally funded contracts in Caltrans highway, transit, and airport financial assistance programs, to create a level playing field on which DBEs can compete fairly for federally funded contracts, to ensure the DBE program is narrowly tailored in accordance with the applicable law, and to ensure that only firms that fully meet this part's eligibility standards are permitted to participate as DBEs. Next slide, please. Here are some of the benefits of being DBE certified. DBE certification is recognized by 900 local agencies in California. It expands opportunities to participate in federally funded contracts. You become accessible to prime contractors needing to fulfill DBE participation goal requirements. You are listed in the CUCP database, which is available to all state agencies and the general public, and it increases your opportunities to network at events such as procurement fairs and pre-bids. Next slide, please. Moving on to the California Unified Certification Program. This is also referred to as the CUCP. Next slide, please. As mandated by the United States Department of Transportation, California's Unified Certification Program is an agreement between multiple certifying agencies. The CUCP provides a public database to find DBEs, and you can also view competitors' profile information. Next slide, please. Along with Caltrans, here's a list of the DBE certifying agencies in California. The main differences between Caltrans and most of these agencies is they only certify in a specific geographic area. For example, while Caltrans certification branch certifies eligible firms throughout the state, there are other agencies which only provide DBE certification in their geographical area. This includes the City of Los Angeles Metropolitan Transit Authority, Bay Area Rapid Transit, or BART, and the City of Fresno, just to name a few. Next slide, please. Now let's talk about DBE eligibility. Next slide. Certifying agencies are required to request tax documents, personal identification documents, and business documents to certify that the potential DBE meets the eligibility criteria. The following 6 eligibility requirements listed on this slide must be proved by a DBE applicant, but they do not cover all the requirements found in 49 CFR Part 26. Next slide, please. Social and economic disadvantage. USDOT defines socially and economically disadvantaged individuals as any individual who has been subjected to racial or ethnic prejudice and cultural biases within American society because of his or her identity as members of groups and without regard to his or her individual qualities. This refers to the 6 presumptive groups who are considered disadvantaged by the federal government, and these include Asian Pacific Americans, Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native American, subcontinent Asian Americans, and women. If you do not fall within one of the presumptive groups, you can submit a narrative explaining how you are socially and economically disadvantaged. Next slide, please. Ownership. To be a DBE, you must be a for-profit small business where socially and economically disadvantaged individuals own at least 51% interest and control management and daily business operations. Ownership cannot be in name only. In the case where there are multiple owners, 51% must be comprised of socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. Next slide, please. Control. The 51% owner must possess the required license or credential, if required by law, to own and or control a certain type of firm. This means that if you have an engineering firm with 3 owners, but only one holds the required licenses, that specific person must have management control of the daily business operations. Next slide, please. Independence. An independent business is one that the viability does not depend on the relationship of another firm or firms. This means that the business cannot be dependent on another firm to provide personnel, facilities, equipment, or financial support. Next slide, please. Personal net worth. The 51% majority owner must not exceed a personal net worth of 1.32 million. Your primary resident would not be included in this amount, nor would the value of your business. Next slide, please. Business size standard. So a firm's 3-year gross receipt average must not exceed 30.40 million for the DBE statutory cap. It must not exceed the 5-year gross receipts average for the SBA size standard for work codes. This number will vary for different industries, and for some industries like manufacturers, there might not be a dollar amount. The SBA size standard will be based on the total number of employees that a firm has. The way we calculate and evaluate this information is through the tax information. Next slide, please. Now, applying for DBE certification. This process can seem a bit overwhelming, but I'm here today to provide you with a step-by-step overview of the application process. Next slide, please. The application process, the usual processing time is about 90 days after your application is deemed complete. However, if it is incomplete, the certification branch will reach out to you to provide us any additional documentation needed. The time clock will start once all required information is received. Once the DBE certifying office has received all the required documents listed on the checklist, the application process begins. Your application will be reviewed by an analyst and an on-site interview will be scheduled. An analyst from the certification office will schedule a virtual meeting or visit your business or home office to conduct the on-site interview. The certification analyst will interview the majority owners and principals, and once the interview has been completed, your file analyst, along with the certification manager, will decide on your application and you will be notified whether your application was approved or denied. Next slide, please. To apply for DBE certification, you can contact any one of the CUCP certifying partners by clicking on their logos using the link provided on this slide. Next slide, please. Now that we've discussed the application process, let's look at where the electronic DBE application can be located. Step 1, you would want to go to the Caltrans homepage where you can find information about the DBE program by navigating to the Office of Civil Rights OCR webpage. One of the ways to get there is to click on the programs icon at the top of the Caltrans homepage. Step 2, click on Civil Rights linked. Then click on California Unified Certification Program link. And this will take you to the California Unified Certification Program, and then click on Find a California Certifying Agency under the Vendor Certification section. Next slide, please. Step 5, an online certification screen will populate, and here there'll be 4 certifying agencies in the respective areas to choose from depending on the locations your firm can work. For this example, select details under the "Is your firm located in Northern California area?" to choose the Caltrans certifying agency. Step 6 is an additional screen will populate, providing you with a list of all the counties in that specific area, and you would click California Department of Transportation. Then click Apply for/Renew Certification under the Certification section. Once the online certification screen populates, click Create Account and begin following the prompts to answer all questions. You have to create an account prior to completing the application. One thing to remember is you may already have an account due to working relationships with other agencies. Therefore, prior to creating a new account, it's always best to look up account to ensure that you are not currently in the system. This can be done by clicking on the Lookup Account link. Next slide, please. You will need to create an online account and to complete your certification application. So creating an account will allow you to review your profile after certification and complete annual renewals. Overall, this account is a portal for everything related to your certification moving forward. In order to complete setting up your account, the following information is required: your firm's tax ID, business information, contact information, and the contact person. To ensure security of your new DBE application, only you will have access to this record once it's created. By starting the process, it will initially be assigned to you and no one else can access it unless you reassign it to another user for completion or explicitly grant access by clicking the Utilities tab and adding a user to the access list. Also, please keep in mind you will have 90 days to complete a new DBE application. Otherwise, the record will self-delete after 90 days. Periodic reminders will be sent to you by email up to that point, and a deleted application cannot be recovered, so you will need to restart if it is deleted. Next slide, please. Here are some important things you want to remember. Complete your application within 90 days. Make sure your application and personal net worth statement are signed and notarized. Upload all required documents, and you can go to the link on the screen directly to complete your application, which is our caltrans.dbesystem.com. Next slide, please. As we wrap up this presentation, let's address some common questions that you may have. Next slide, please. Is there a fee for applying? No, the only cost associated with the DBE certification is to notarize your application and P&W statement. Can I mail my application? At this time, all applications are to be submitted online at the link provided, which is the caltrans.dbesystem.com. How long does it take to get a response after I submit my application? After Caltrans receives all complete and necessary paperwork, it can take up to 1 month. Next slide, please. Now let's talk about some available resources in the next slide. Please take a picture or write down this information to help you with your certification process after you are certified. Next slide, please. Caltrans Office of Civil Rights has an analyst of the day that can answer any questions that you have. You can also contact your local Caltrans district small business liaisons for assistance. You can reach the analyst of the day at the phone number provided, 916-324-1700, or you can send us an email at our email inbox, which is dbe.certification@dot.ca.gov. The USDOT program and DBE federal programs are also great resources when getting started. So each of these websites will provide you with additional insight on the program, and they are listed here on the slide as well. Next slide, please. So this is your opportunity to ask any questions that you may have. Please feel free to put them in the chat and I'll do my best to address all your questions. Next slide, please. In conclusion, DBE certification can open doors to growth and success, and we're here to help you every step of the way. If you have any questions or you need assistance, please do not hesitate to reach out to the Caltrans Certification Branch. Thank you for joining today, and I look forward to working with you on your DBE certification journey.
Thank you for that great presentation, Chardonnay. And now, if there are no questions, we're going to go ahead and move forward with Joshua from DGS, Department of General Services. Joshua.
Oh, fantastic. First of all, welcome everyone. Of course, my name is Joshua Hauk. I'm a business outreach liaison with the Office of Small Business and Disabled Veteran Business Enterprise Services within the Department of General Services for the state of California. So before we get started, I want you to take a moment and I want you to jot down my contact information on whatever preferred medium you use, whether it's a computer screenshot, phone, pen, paper. If you've got questions during this presentation, I'm going to do my best, time permitting, to address them at the end. But if you have questions outside of this presentation, you now have a point of contact to reach out to. So I'm either going to get you the information that you're looking for, or I'm going to point you in the right direction of someone who can. I also want to thank the team over at California High-Speed Rail for giving us the opportunity to speak with you today. Next slide, please. All right. Now, I'm really lucky because I get to talk to you about doing business with California by registering in CaliProcure, which is an incredibly resource-filled website. And I get to talk to you about our small business and disabled veteran business enterprise programs. Now, to really understand the SB and DVBE programs, you need to know how we operate and a little bit of the why. So the state of California as a whole, and each department and agency within are mandated by law to spend 25% of all contract dollars with certified small businesses, and the state has a goal of 3% of all contract dollars going to disabled veteran business enterprises, DVBEs. Now, you might think that these are arbitrary percentages, but what does this mean in real world numbers? Why are we doing this? Next slide, please. All right, fantastic. So this is the data for fiscal year 2021. It's the most recent year that we've got data on, and I think it tells a pretty convincing story on why certifications are so important. What you're seeing in this infographic is 3.3 billion contract dollars going to certified small businesses and 646 million going to disabled veteran business enterprises. And yes, we were a hair off on meeting our SB goal, but even with that 0.18%, which we're taking steps daily to document and surpass in upcoming years, it shows that certified businesses get contracting dollars. These are California funds staying in California. They boost local economies and they help those who need it most. Now, all of this doesn't happen if businesses don't get certified. So let's talk about the certifications that we oversee. Next slide, please. There we go. The state of California has three main certifications: small business for the purpose of public works, and my personal favorite, the DVBE certification. Now, when you hear me talk about the benefits of certification, these are the certifications that I'm referring to. They're administered by DGS, and we're going to go into more details for each of them in upcoming slides. But there are two frequently asked questions that our offices often ask that I want to preemptively address. And the first is, can you get more than one certification at a time? And the answer is yes, but you want to get it with the right combo. As an example, you shouldn't get the small business and the SBPW certification at the same time if you qualify for both, because one is limited only to public works solicitations and the benefits don't stack. But you can get SB and DVBE certifications at the same time, and those benefits stack. And I promise more information is coming on this in future slides, so hang tight, I got you. The other question that we're often asked is, do we have other certifications for things like being a woman-owned business, a disadvantaged-owned business, even a veteran-owned business without the disability factor? The federal government might have them, city and county governments might have them, public and private institutions might have them, but DGS only administers these certifications for right now. But that said, let's talk about how we can make our certifications work for you. Next slide, please. All right. So if you're competing against a non-certified business, certified small businesses get a 5% bid preference, and certified DVBEs get up to a 5% incentive as well. As kind of a preemptive point to the frequently asked question, All this information, it can be found in the solicitation. And yes, again, with both of those certifications, SB and DVBE, those benefits stack. There are types of contracting opportunities that are only available to certified businesses. So if you're not certified, you're automatically excluded from those contracting opportunities. As a certified small business, you get the benefits of the Prompt Payment Act, meaning that the state pays higher interest penalties for late and undisputed payments. And a special thing to note, penalties are higher for certified small businesses than for non-certified small businesses. So that's more money in your pocket just from getting certified. Our certifications are often recognized by many cities, counties, local utilities, transportation agencies, and school districts, who we call reciprocity partners. At last count, I think we have about 42 reciprocity partners, and they may have policies that benefit your business as well. And if you're a certified subcontractor, the prime, they get the benefits of your certification, and it makes you a very desirable subcontractor. And all of this is just from getting certified. Now, I recognize that there are likely questions regarding preferences and incentives, so let's go ahead and get into that for a sec. Next slide, please. All right, fantastic. So this is a story that really puts you in the driver's seat. Let's say bidder A is a non-certified small business, and they have the lowest bid for a contract at $100,000. And without lower priced competition, they win that contract. But what if there's a certified small business who's bidding on the exact same contract, and the winner is determined on lowest cost? It's not always the case, but it's very often the case. So with that 5% preference, 5% of the lowest bid is subtracted from the bid of the certified business, adjusting it to that lower amount. Now, this is just for evaluation purposes. For award purposes, they not only win, but they win for their original bid. So this is just one example of why certifications are so important. Next slide, please. Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. So probably asking at this point, what are the requirements for certification as a small business? So naturally, they must be independently owned and operated. They can't be a subsidiary of another business. They must not be dominant in their field of operation. So as an example, if you're selling hamburgers, you can't be McDonald's. You're the biggest competition, meaning that you have either over 51% of the market share or the largest percentage of the market share. Your principal office, your headquarters, has to be located in California. Now, this isn't to say that businesses can't have offices in other places, but the headquarters must be located in California. Owners or officers for a corporation must be domiciled in California. And that's just a fancy way of saying that they have to have their primary residence here. Because again, it's a California program for Californians. The business, it must have 100 or fewer employees. Gross annual receipts must be less than 16 million with affiliates, and I know we call that GAR. And that number, that's averaged over a 3-year period. And the kicker, if the company is a manufacturer, they just need 100 or fewer employees, and there's no GAR cap. All right, so we talked about the small business certification, but what about small business for the purpose of public works? Next slide, please. All right, so there's a certification called Small Business for the Purpose of Public Works, and it's very similar to the small business certification. And we're going to talk about the two primary differences and then go into a comparison on which one might be right for you. So the SBPW certification has the same requirements as the small business certification with two big differences. Because public works are often contracts with a larger scale, as an example, maybe fixing roads or building high-speed rail versus maybe buying pens for an office. Businesses who are SBPW certified, they're required to have 200 or fewer employees and gross annual receipts of less than 37 million with affiliates. So you might be asking yourself, why would I get SBPW over a small business certification? Next slide, please. There we go. Okay. So remember when I said some certifications don't stack? Let me hammer in that point here. You should only get one certification between small business and small business for the purpose of public works. But here's the kicker. It's the same benefits, but SBPW has some restrictions. It's only for public works projects. Small business certifications are for everything, including public works. So if you've determined that you only want to work on large projects and you have over 100 employees, or maybe your gross annual receipts are over 16 million, the SBPW certification is your avenue to still work these types of projects as a certified business. But for most small businesses, we recommend the small business certification. But now let's talk about my personal favorite certification, the DVBE. Next slide, please. All right. So in order to give a business advantage to disabled veterans in the state of California, the state has a DVBE certification, and there are 5 requirements. The first is that the owner or owners, they must be a disabled veteran. Now, a disabled veteran is a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces, so sorry, Canada, with a service-connected disability of at least 10%. Now, this disability status, it's often determined by the federal government, or pardon me, is determined by the federal government, not by the state of California. So if you have questions about this, I want you to please reach out to your VA or your local VSO office. Now, a DVBE certified business must be a business that is 51% or more owned by one or more disabled veterans. For limited liability companies or LLCs, the business must be 100% owned by disabled veterans. The disabled veterans, they must live in California, and the owners that are not disabled veterans, they can live anywhere. The daily management and operation of the business, it must be done by disabled veterans, although it doesn't have to be the same disabled veterans who own the business. And lastly, the business needs to be headquartered in the United States. So the business can't be a branch or a subsidiary of a foreign corporation, a foreign firm, or other foreign-based business. Now, you might see something from the list that was in the SB and SBPW certifications that's missing here. You'll note that there's no gross annual receipts cap, no GAR cap, and there's no employee cap, which means that DVBEs can grow quite large. All right, let's talk about where you go to register to do business with the state and get all of these certifications that we just talked about. Next slide, please. All right. Remember when I mentioned an incredibly resource-filled website? Here it is, folks. Take a moment, write it down, screenshot it, do what you got to do. To give you guys time on it, when I was first learning about all this stuff, I was listening to a lot of these presentations, and I thought Cali was like LL Cool J's going back to Cali, and I was completely wrong. C-A-L-E, procure. All right. Well, I think that bad joke has given you enough time to screenshot that page. So next slide, please. Okay. So this is California's centralized marketplace on where you can register your business and apply for those certifications that we just talked about. It's where departments and offices put out solicitations and contracts. It's also where, when you put your information in, you can receive notifications about solicitations and contracts. So state buyers, for those departments and offices, they see you in searches when you register your business in Cali Procure. There's ads for prime and subcontracting, as well as tons of public procurement information. There's training, there's resources. And I always like to say this kind of like an infomercial thing, but like, how much would you pay for such an information-filled website? And let me let the state of California answer that question. It's not a thing. This is all no cost. So next slide, please. Speaking of awesome things that you can add into Cali Procure, I also want to mention in 2022, the Department of General Services began collecting voluntary diversity data information from certified businesses, currently registered businesses, and new businesses within their Cali Procure profile. Now, collecting voluntary diversity data, it's a part of California's commitment to support diversity, equity, and inclusion in state procurement. So we highly recommend that all businesses, when registering with the state, complete the diversity data. The diversity data, it enables the evaluation of the effectiveness of the state's existing outreach programs, and it provides a better understanding of where targeted outreach efforts need to be established. The goal is to ensure that California's supplier base is reflective of our state, and we're a diverse state. So this information is voluntary. You can change and remove the data at any time directly in your profile in Cali Procure. This information, it doesn't grant a contracting preference, and it doesn't affect your contracting efforts or opportunities. It might be utilized by departments and state organizations outside of the Department of General Services. Your information is publicly displayed on your certification profile, and information about voluntary diversity data can be found on OSDS's website when you search the statewide supplier diversity program. Again, highly recommend this, so please definitely check it out. All right, next slide, please. Okay. Are we on the next slide? Oh, nope, sorry. Yep, there we go. It was lagging a little on my side. My apologies. Okay, now that we have talked about different kinds of fulfillment for solicitations, and everything from public works projects to buying pens and paper for offices and most everything in between. Right now, I want to focus on an extremely important part of state contracting, and that's contracting during emergencies for the state. Now, California is no stranger to emergencies. We've got wildfires, earthquakes, tropical storms, but it's not just that. Events like a water line bursting in a state hospital can be considered an emergency too. And this is how we contribute to responses. So the emergency registry is a dedicated portal for California certified businesses to register as a supplier of emergency goods and services. It's separate from CaliProcure, although you can find more information about it from CaliProcure. It's used by state departments and buyers, and unlike CaliProcure, this portal will only include businesses that provide goods and services from predetermined emergency categories, and we're going to show those in the next slide. State Department buyers, they can access and search this pool of suppliers, and those suppliers, they need to be ready at a moment's notice. So I want you to think about this for a moment. This is used in incredibly difficult situations and incredibly hard times. So if you had a son or a daughter who was a firefighter and the state needed to fulfill a contract for fire hoses, you would want the best resources and the fastest turnaround time for them, right? This is a self-selection process, but you should be asking yourself hard questions on if you're willing and able to fulfill these requirements and needs. So please frame your perspective about this registry around examples like that. So with that said, which businesses should sign up? SB and DVBE businesses who are currently ready and able to support the state of California in an emergency are who we're looking for. And these businesses, they must understand that emergency contracting requires fast, around-the-clock turnaround times. A business should not register unless they are fully capable of immediately providing the goods or services that they list. I'm a huge advocate of erring on the side of caution with these. All right, next slide. Okay, these are some of the emergency registry categories. Take some time to look at them, and you'll see that there's a theme here of providing critical resources in difficult times. So as a reminder, businesses must select at least one category when registering. All right, next slide, please. If your business is ready for something like this, then this is the basic information that businesses need to register. You're going to need a certification number. You're going to need the categories that you wish to work in. Again, remember, you have to select at least one from the slide that we just had. You're going to need a description of the products or services that you provide. You're going to need the address of your business, and you're going to need the contact information for both your primary hours, your 9 to 5, and your emergency hours, because emergencies happen 24/7. All right, next slide. If you've got complex questions that you need experts on, please schedule a consultation with us. We cover all of those listed points, getting introduced to state contracting, CaliProcure registration and certification in far greater detail, updating profiles and finding contracting opportunities. But for right now, next slide, please. Again, I'm Joshua Hauk. This is my contact information. And if there is anything that I can help you with, please do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much. And with that back, I'm going to turn it back over to Katrine. So there we go.
Josh, thank you so much. Appreciate you joining us today. And thank you to DGS, DOT, and our HSR compliance manager for the excellent presentations. And as you can see, DGS and DOT shared many benefits that extend beyond high-speed rail. So you can see how having these certifications can potentially create opportunity statewide with these and other California state departments and local agencies. So please make sure you're certified. If you're a prime contractor, extend these opportunities to your subcontractors or subconsultants. And so at this time, this concludes the presentation portion of the workshop. So we'll open it up for Q&A if there are any questions. I did see a question regarding presentation materials, additional information about the bid from this morning. And I did place a link in the chat where you can find our contracts out for bid, and you want to look at the train sets. I think it's called Train Sets and Other Services. If you click on that link, you'll get all of the information from today's pre-bid and all of the information from our small business workshop. You'll have to give us about a week or so to get things uploaded, because we do have to make sure the presentations are remediated for ADA compliance before we post them on the website. So if you give us about a week or so to get that done, we'll make sure that we get all the presentations, the registration lists posted on the website so that you can network amongst each other, talk about teaming opportunities, and things of that nature. So if you are not asking any other questions, you can feel free to sign off. And we'll stay on for just a couple more minutes, just in case someone joined late and they have some questions. If you have questions specific to the train sets procurement that was presented this morning, please direct those questions to trainsets@hsr.ca.gov. I will go ahead and put that in the chat right now. Let's see. Let me copy that and I will get that in there so that if you sign off, you will have that information. There it is. Okay, so we won't be able to answer any specific questions to the procurement because we are technically now in an active procurement phase. But any questions that come through that email specific to the procurement will be provided a written response so that all businesses can have access to the same response. And then again, I placed the link where you can find additional information about contracts out to bid in the chat earlier, but I'll be happy to copy it again, just in case it got moved to the top. So bear with me while I paste that in the chat. There it is there. So you can click that link and get straight to the website, and you'll click on the train sets link. And you can also click on any other links because we've had quite a few pre-bids. We have quite a few contracts that have already gone out to bid. So this opportunity as well as other opportunities will be available at that link. So at this time, if there are no other questions, I see no more in the chat. Team, do you see any other questions that I might have missed?
No, you've answered them all, Katrina.
Okay. Thank you. So at this time, seeing no other questions, we will go ahead and conclude the workshop. Thank you all for attending and giving us your afternoon, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Annette, you can go ahead and end the presentation since there's no additional questions.